All right, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so I grew up in Three Lakes, Wisconsin. That's where I went to high school. Went to the University of Wisconsin Green Bay for 2 years of college, and then transferred to the University of Wisconsin Milwaukee for the rest of my degree. My degree is in advertising and public relations. When I went to college, I knew I wanted to do something in social media, but didn't quite know what that looked like. Also, it wasn't really a major you could have at that point. It was just something I figured I would have to, work my way into at some point. Now, when you go to college, you can major in it, which is awesome. I have undergrad interns right now that are doing that, and they're in our media school, and they're able to have kind of a better experience as far as like social media goes in college than I did. So after college, I worked a couple random jobs and did some social media internships in school and then post grad. Last fall or 2 falls ago, I moved out to Oregon. Worked at Oregon State, which is in Corvallis, and got connected with them through one of my close friends who coaches out there now. If you have a chance to check their social media out, they do a great job. Their handle, I think it's Go Beavs or something. I think it's Oregon State Athletics, I want to say. But they do great stuff. So I was out there for a couple months and then moved back to Wisconsin and then just started. I knew I wanted to stay in athletics, so I started applying to random schools all over the country, just emailing people and seeing if anybody had an opportunity available for me to come and work for them. At first, I applied for open positions, and then I just started cold emailing people with my resume and cover letter, just saying, "Hey, I will work for free. I just want a shot at this." Um,
Can we stop you right
LinkedIn.
there? Mr.
What?
Reisler has a question.
Oh,
Yeah, I just
sure.
want to know, do you have a rough estimate of how many you just said cold emailed? Do you have any
Yeah.
idea how many emails you actually sent out?
I'd have to look back. Maybe like 30 to 40. That's just like a rough estimate. I'm not quite sure. Um, but between that and application, so it just kind of varied on which school I was looking at. I wanted to stay Midwest, so I started emailing a lot of Big Ten schools, some D2 schools in Michigan and Illinois and stuff like that. And Indiana wrote back and said, "Sure, we have a post grad internship slash grad assistant position open. When can you start?" So that's the story behind that. So I came down here in August of last year, and I've been here since then, working in it's called the Cuban Center. Mark Cuban donated a bunch of money to Indiana University, and that's where our creative services are housed here on campus. So that's the short end of it.
Now you're at Indiana University. What are some of the things that you guys do to, generate action from your followers?
Sure. So we actually have a really cool setup in our office. So we have like a virtual reality studio, we have a podcast studio, photo studio, stuff like that. So we do a lot of like video with our different sports. We do like a gift shoot for each of our sports teams as well, and we use those throughout the season. Um, Photo obviously is used in a lot of things, and then a lot of our job is like the social end of things is putting together those things that other people have done. So the video team will make their videos, and then photo, obviously they'll edit everything, and then we have the job sometimes of putting that together and getting to figure out which platform it'll work best on. So sometimes our interns will work on making gifs out of video clips we have from a game, like a basketball game, and then we'll use those gifs in game, for like reactions or random things that are going on. Um, Other things we do, we did a just like depending on what's going on in the year too. So like Valentine's Day just happened. I guess it's March already, but I guess a month ago. So we picked random photos and made our own Valentines and then made that into a gift that we put out. So just like sometimes it's just really simple things you do to get engagement. Other times it's like a bigger deal. So we have this video series we do that's called Hoosier Bedtime Stories. And so that kind of focuses on like present day stories that are happening, but it also talks about like things in our past. Indiana has a pretty rich history as far as sports go. Basketball is huge in the state of Indiana. There's a movie about the Hoosiers, and then Assembly Hall, where basketball is played, is historic in terms of college basketball. So we talk about that a lot. And so those bedtime stories, there was a basketball one. There's one that talked about one of our swimmers who's gone to the Olympics. So kind of just focusing on what's going on, but also talking about our past as well. Another team to look at that would be good at that would obviously be the Packers, because they have a rich history in football. So that's another thing to check out. They use their past in a good way too.
So, like, what are some, some things that you guys do to kind of like network with other businesses? I know Mr. Reisler explained our project. Any strategies that you would have for the kids to kind of generate some connections with businesses in the area?
Sure. That would be more of our marketing department. So as far as my job goes, I don't touch on that a lot. What we do, our connections are more with fans. So I guess that could translate into talking to people in the community as well. So we answer a lot of questions for people. People use our Twitter as like a resource for when events are happening or when tickets are sold or things like that. So a lot of the stuff comes to us. We don't have to reach out as much. But definitely keeping communication open and making sure that conversation, people feel welcome to ask you questions and feel like they can use you as a resource.
Student questions?
Yep.
So we had some students that listened to your last podcast, so they may be asking a few questions here.
Okay.
Who wants to go first? All right, come on up here, Alex.
Alrighty, so in your podcast, you talked about how extracurriculars as a teen helped you build relationships. So do you still hold some of these relationships today? And if so, how does that help you with your profession?
Sure. So when I was in high school, I volunteered at a summer camp actually. And so I built a lot of connections that way. And honestly, those relationships have carried me through to where I am now. And even like teachers from my high school and stuff, I still keep in contact with. I think it's just being open to pretty much anything being in high school. I wouldn't shut anything out until you know further in life what you want to do. But I think just being able to have a conversation with anybody and being able to be respectful to them and get to know their story as well. Those relationships will definitely benefit you in the future, because if you have a job interview somewhere or you need advice on a certain topic, you have those people kind of in your corner and in your, they're going to stand up and say good things about you because in the past you have been there for them as well. So
very cool. All right. And then just what is your favorite part about what you do today?
Sure. My favorite part of my job now, I think, is being at the events. We had college game day here in the fall, and that was something I probably will never forget. I never thought I would ever end up doing something like that. Stadium was packed. It was a night game, and I just remember standing there and just like taking it all in at one point, and I was just like, I don't know, it's like one of those movie moments where you're there and you're like, wow, how did I get here? But definitely that our fans are awesome at basketball games as well. Like it's an experience that I'll never forget.
Very cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Alex.
All right, who's next? Go ahead, Rio.
Okay, hi. So in your podcast, you mentioned a lot about Oregon State. So I was just wondering, like, what were some of the challenges that you faced, and what would you recommend to, like, overcome those?
Sure, like personally or professionally?
Both, I guess. I don't know.
Both, okay. Personally, it was super far away from home. That's the farthest I've ever lived from Wisconsin, and I wouldn't say I moved out there on a whim, but I definitely was like, nope, this is what I'm going to do. Like my mind was set. I moved out there. And then a couple months in, I just was like, wow, I'm really far away from anybody I know. You learn a lot about yourself when you're by yourself and you get to know your strengths and your weaknesses and how much your close relationships mean to you. I have to say, working there though, that team was so good to me, and they really just reached out to me and made sure I was doing well while I was out there. Professionally, I had never been at a D1 athletic program. So I went to Green Bay and Milwaukee, but never had helped in their athletic department. So going out there, they're a Power 5 school. I mean, excel in baseball. Their women's basketball team's doing really well right now. So I felt like I had these big shoes to fill, and I felt very unqualified to be where I was. But I think to overcome that, you just have to show up every day, and you need to put your best face on and say, nope, I'm here. Like, there's a reason I'm here, and I'm going to do the best I can, and ask questions if you need to, but also believe in yourself and know that you're in a position for a reason, and be confident in that.
Bekah, a lot of young children, young adults don't have any idea what it's like to do grunt work. Can you tell the story about how the rain affected what you were doing? Like, you have big aspirations of being in charge of social media, but what kind of grunt work did you do?
Oh, well, I mean, I worked for free out there. So I worked 2 or 3 other jobs while I was also interning. So I'd wake up at 5:36, go work my whatever job I was working. I worked at a camp and I worked somewhere else. So whatever job I was doing, worked there all day. Then I'd go to a game at night and work that for 2 or 3 hours, depending on what was going on. And go to bed, wake up, do it again. So weeks like that. Also just like games where I was standing in the pouring rain running SD cards back and forth from the photographers to the office, and you're like soaked and you're wearing jeans and you're like, this is the worst thing in the world. But looking back on it now, it's like, wow, that built a little character in me, and it reminds you that you're not better than anybody else on your team. Like, you need to earn your keep, and everyone has been in that position before. So
Other one, Rio?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so when you're younger, like what inspired you to do this?
Sure. So I always grew up loving sports. So that was kind of the basis for why I want to go into athletics. However, I've always seen brands that have done social well that aren't sports. So like if you look at, I don't know, Pop-Tarts or Moon Pie. I don't know if you guys know what that is on Twitter. They're like really funny right now. They're like a Hostess snack or something. Just really, I've always been witty, and I like that kind of sense of humor, sarcasm. And so I think that's what I always gravitated towards. And I wanted to know, like, how do these people get this job? Like, how do you get to be the voice of a Hostess snack or like things like that? So it always just kind of intrigued me to, explore that side of what it could be.
Okay, awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
What else do we have? JD? Connor? They took all yours, both?
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions for Ms. Vought?
Real quick, so when you're devising, or when you see any part of your team devising or creating a social media post, what goes in? Can you talk about the structure? Because they are working in teams of people, and you are also working in a team. And how does that kind of look? Do you have a certain person that's working on Instagram, for example, and vice versa? Can you just kind of talk about the structure?
Sure. So yeah, we do have an intern that runs our Instagram. We split the responsibilities between doing like the stories throughout the week, depending on the game, but she runs the feed for the most part. And so basically with the structure of those, we want to have a consistent message. So we always want a positive message, obviously. And we always want to keep it evergreen, which means that if you look at with Instagram's algorithm now, like when you look at the post in 3 days, it's not going to seem like it's dated, or if you look at it in a month. So using that in the caption and keeping that in mind. We have like official emojis we use. So that's like the white and the red dot. We use those a lot. And then we always use the hashtag GoIU. And that's used consistently across like all our platforms. Twitter too, as far as like our tweets, those are all written in a way that you can't tell who's writing them. There's some brands out there now that you can definitely tell there's a voice behind it, and you want a strong voice, but you also want to keep your personality out of it. I think you want the voice to be the school or the brand. You don't want it to be the person behind it. So we discuss a lot about, discuss that too as we're posting.
Those are great insights. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else? All right, let's give her a round of applause. Thank you for taking your time.
Thank you.
Mr. Rice, you want me to stop the recording? Thank you very much for coming in. We appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.